Farmers push back against a proposal to end tariffs on US farm products, and some opposition lawmakers join them.
健康无国界哈，不能够就是说漏掉任何一个人或国家。
Taiwan's been snubbed at yet another World Health Assembly session, but it's still sending a delegation to do medical diplomacy. Taiwan's final working nuclear reactor prepares to shut down. Plus,
that is another example to disencourage the youth, because I'm telling them, if you want to be success in politics, you have to hide yourself from the public.
Why do few LGBTQ+ people in Taiwan get into political careers? A warm welcome to TaiwanPlus News. I'm Louise Watt. Farmers are angry at a proposal to lift all tariffs on US agricultural imports as part of trade talks with the Trump administration. They say it's not just an issue of livelihoods, but of national food security. As John Van Trieste reports, lawmakers are now weighing in.
Farmers gather outside the cabinet in the mid-May heat to protest. President Lai Ching-te has proposed ending import duties on all U.S. farm products, part of his strategy to keep threatened American tariffs at bay. But these farmers say cheap U.S. imports, especially of rice, could kill hundreds of thousands of livelihoods. And they say they won't stand for it. The biggest name here today is Yang Rumen, the rice bomber, a man known for using shock to draw attention to farmers' problems. From 2003, this farmer set off a string of blasts in public places with homemade explosives. Taiwan had joined the World Trade Organization, and Yang wanted the government to consider the impact on farmers. No one was hurt, but Yang did do jail time. Today, he wants to let non-farmers know why they should care about the fate of local farms.
台湾跟中国的关系就是不好，在这个情况底下的时候，如果台湾没有一个基础的粮食自主跟粮食安全状况底下的时候，万不一发生台海问题的时候，那台湾人到底要吃什么？
He says farmers are not against imports or competition, but that trade terms must be fair and labeling must be clear, so those who want to buy local have the choice. After a series of other speakers, the protesters lay out three demands. Taiwan's food security shouldn't be up for negotiation, trade talks with the U.S. should be transparent, and Taiwan's farmers should have a role in the negotiations.
你好，我是行政院经贸谈判办公室执行秘书毕信徐。
The government's response to these demands is hard to gauge. A cabinet official comes out to formally take a petition listing these demands, but goes back in without comment. TaiwanPlus approached the Agriculture Ministry for a response, but the ministry declined. However, cabinet officials asked about the protest had this to say.
我们会维护国家级产业最大利益，维护国民健康跟粮食安全前提下那在这样的一个基本立场，争取最好的结果。因此，在这个过程当中，我们必须说的、必须争取的跟必须维护的我们都已明确表达，也会继续努力。政府无能，政府无能，害死农民，害死农民。
But while the cabinet may or may not be listening to the farmers, some lawmakers are. It's just a short march over to the legislature where 4 lawmakers are waiting to back the farmers. All come from the opposition bloc. Assign agricultural tariffs may be a new point of partisan division.
不过请放心，国民党现在是我们立法院的最大党团，再加上民众党，我们其实有能力去抗衡。所以在这边，我们一定全力的支持我们的农民。
The farmers here say they don't know how much Taiwan and the U.S. have actually talked about agricultural tariffs so far, but they are adamant that they won't back down.
到时候我们一定也会发起这样一个大型的特别是像这个不是像今天这样子这么和平的这个请愿，那个时候 可能政府就要有相当的准备。所以我觉得，我们希望不要走到那一步。走到那一步，我想我们会更激烈。
For now, the farmers will go back to their land. But if concrete tariff cuts go ahead, the rumble of discontent from the countryside could grow into something bigger. Fu Huahong and John Van Trieste for TaiwanPlus.
Chip in with Taiwan. That's the slogan the health and foreign ministries are using to rally support as they head to Geneva ahead of a global health summit. Rhys Ayres has more on their plans for medical diplomacy.
Excluding Taiwan from global health conversations is a loss for all. That's the message from the foreign and health ministries as they prepare to send an entourage to Switzerland ahead of the World Health Assembly, despite not being given a seat at the table. AI-integrated medical treatments and experience developing one of the world's most respected national healthcare systems. That's what Taiwan is offering as it prepares to campaign from the sidelines of the annual World Health Assembly, the decision-making body of the World Health Organization, and convince the world that its tech and medical expertise are not to be ignored.
我们也预计于日内瓦召开国际记者会，经由世界媒体记者呼吁更多国家以及所有 重视全球卫生安全的国际医卫团体一起来支持台湾，以观察员的身份出席 WHA， 并完整的参与 WHO 所有的会议、活动与机制。
Taiwan hasn't held back its criticism of the WHO, calling its decision to place politics above health a betrayal and miscarriage of its core duty, one the foreign minister was keen to repeat.
健康无国界哈。 不能够，就是说漏掉任何一个人或国家。
It's the 9th year in a row that Taiwan has been denied access, and even before then it was only granted observer status. China, which claims Taiwan as its own, continues to block Taiwan's participation.
中国台湾地区在未经中央政府同意的前提下，没有任何根据、理由或权利参加世卫大会。
Taiwan's medical diplomacy campaign is an annual affair, but calls for it to join international bodies like the United Nations and WHO are growing, particularly since the COVID-19 pandemic, when Taiwan demonstrated its medical prowess tackling the virus. Just weeks ago, the US House of Representatives passed a bill that pledged American support for Taiwan's participation in such organizations. More than just an opportunity to flex its medical and technological might, the meetings on the sidelines of the upcoming World Health Assembly will give Taiwan a chance to garner more support for its cause, to be allowed in the room where the conversations are happening about the future of health for all. Klein Wang and Rhys Ayres for TaiwanPlus.
Hopes are dimming for a breakthrough in talks to end the war between Russia and Ukraine. That's after Russian President Vladimir Putin failed to show up for negotiations in Turkey. The two warring countries have instead sent delegations to Istanbul for the talks. Rosie Greninger reports.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy in Turkey ahead of planned face-to-face peace talks between Kyiv and Moscow, the first of their kind since the beginning of the three-year war between Russia and Ukraine. The Ukrainian leader first met with Turkish President Tayyip Erdogan in Ankara to discuss peace efforts. But as the Kremlin confirmed Russian President Vladimir Putin would be a no-show for the talks, Zelenskyy took aim at Russia's lack of effort to end the war.
Росія не відчуває, що їй потрібно закінчувати цю війну, а значить, не вистачає політичного, економічного і інших тисків на Російську Федерацію. І тому ми просимо, якщо немає припинення вогню, якщо немає серйозних рішень, якщо немає двосторонніх зустрічей, ми просимо відповідні санкції, які будуть стимулом щодо більш швидкого закінчення війни.
Last week, Putin proposed the direct talks with Ukraine in Istanbul, and in response, Zelenskyy said he'd attend, despite Moscow dismissing Kyiv and its allies' demands for an immediate 30-day ceasefire first. The Ukrainian president said due to Putin's absence, he would also not attend the talks, instead sending a delegation headed by the country's defense minister. Russia has sent a comparatively low-level delegation to the city. It's a team Zelenskyy has described as a, quote, dummy delegation. But with the talks still set to go ahead, Turkey's foreign minister called on both countries to find some middle ground.
Amacımız barışa.
As long as our aim is to reach peace, we need to ensure that both sides make certain compromises to take a step towards establishing a mutual peace.
It's something that Russia's delegation says they are open to, saying Moscow's aim is to secure a lasting peace.
We are ready to resume negotiations in Istanbul. We are ready to discuss possible compromises.
But Putin's absence has punctured hopes of any breakthrough in the ceasefire efforts. United States Secretary of State Marco Rubio saying he didn't have high expectations for the talks.
And frankly, at this point, I think it's abundantly clear that the only way we're going to have a breakthrough here is between President Trump and President Putin. It's going to require that level of engagement to have a breakthrough in this matter.
Comments echoed by the US president himself, who has been pushing for an end to the war.
Nothing's going to happen until Putin and I get together, okay? And obviously he wasn't going to go. He was going to go, but he thought I was going to go. He wasn't going if I wasn't there. And I don't believe anything's going to happen, whether you like it or not, until he and I get together.
Regardless, Ukrainian officials are still expected to meet with the Russian delegation in Istanbul. But with no planned meetings between Putin and Trump, hopes of securing some peace between Ukraine and Russia could be left, yet again, at a standstill. James Lin and Rosie Greninger for TaiwanPlus.
Donald Trump is hailing a huge potential United Arab Emirates investment into the United States.
And I look forward to having you in the White House. We'll celebrate together. But we are going to be your friend and we're going to be your partner. And we really appreciate your confidence and an investment. That's your biggest investment that you've ever made. And we really appreciate it. And we're going to treat you very, as you should be, magnificently. And you're a magnificent man, and it's an honor to be with you.
The UAE has pledged to invest $1.4 trillion in the US within a 10-year framework. Trump also announced an additional $200 billion worth of deals with the UAE, promising more cooperation in artificial intelligence. The UAE was the last stop of Trump's tour of Gulf states after Saudi Arabia and Qatar. More Chinese military activity has been spotted in the air and waters near Taiwan. The Defense Ministry says it observed 21 Chinese military aircraft and 6 naval vessels operating near Taiwan in the 24 hours up to Friday morning. They all entered Taiwan's Air Defense Identification Zone, which is not Taiwan's airspace but acts as a buffer zone for defensive purposes. The military says it also spotted an official ship operating near Taiwan. These incursions follow a week of live-fire missile tests in Taiwan's south. Retired US Rear Admiral Mark Montgomery has warned of a closing window to deter China from attacking Taiwan. He says the US should double the number of people sent to train Taiwanese soldiers to 1,000.
As we speak, America's ability to defeat a Chinese attack on Taiwan is eroding. Beijing's military readiness has benefited from a 30-year investment focused on advanced technologies that specifically target U.S. vulnerabilities. In the face of this threat, America's ability to deter China is withering, and thus the risk of a conflict is growing.
Montgomery was speaking at a hearing held by the U.S. House Select Committee on China. Besides urging Washington to increase the size of its training mission in Taipei, he also suggested the U.S. should begin stockpiling weapons in Taiwan, in the same way it does for South Korea and Israel. He also called on Taiwan to raise its military spending. Saturday marks the end of nuclear power in Taiwan. Once one of the most nuclear-reliant economies in the world, the country is now switching off its final reactor. Every day, Chen Long-chung delivers lunch from his restaurant to the nuclear power plant across the road. The father of 2 has lived and worked here in Hengchun town in Taiwan's south for more than half his life. But these are some of the final deliveries before the plant is switched off. And with that, the country's nuclear power. Chen thinks that's a bad decision.
台湾那个煤发电应该是没有比那个核能发电还要来得好。我觉得还是核能发电需要继续延役，应该是对百姓比较好，还有对工业也 OK 啦。因为你如果核能没有发电的话，应该电价会涨。
Despite growing unease amongst some about turning off nuclear power, Taiwan's ruling party is pressing ahead with its long-time goal of a nuclear-free homeland. It's been increasing wind and solar sources and reducing coal-fired power in favour of natural gas. Once seen as a cheap and stable way of helping Taiwan industrialise, nuclear power fell out of public favour because of safety fears, particularly after the 2011 Fukushima disaster in Japan, and the problem of where to store nuclear waste. Since 2017, the operating licences of all Taiwan's reactors have expired. Taiwan's third nuclear power plant opened here on the southern coast in the mid-1980s, when nuclear power accounted for around 50% of the country's electricity. That's now down to 3%, all produced here, the last of Taiwan's 6 reactors to shut down. Taiwan already imports virtually all its energy. That's led to fears about the country's energy supply in the event of a blockade by China, which claims sovereignty over Taiwan.
如果发生了什么问题，也只有2个礼拜的储存的时间，风力更不用说了，就是都不是属于稳定的电源。现在最稳定的电源就是核三嘛。
Businesses already worry about a power crunch after several mass blackouts. In a last-ditch effort to keep nuclear power, Taiwan's opposition-controlled legislature amended the law, allowing plant operators to apply to run for another 20 years. That's come too late to keep this reactor running, and the government says it would take at least a year and a half to restart it. But President Lai Ching-de's Democratic Progressive Party is not ruling out bringing nuclear back sometime in the future.
任何的政策变更都必须满足核安、核废、社会共识3个重要的前提，才有可能进行。
Reaching public and political consensus will be no easy task. At least for now, Taiwan has to adapt to a future with no nuclear power, and the uncertainty that brings. Devon Tsai and Louise Watt for TaiwanPlus. Taiwan is gearing up to become the first country in Asia to host the World Masters Games. Our reporter Lauren Pattermore met some of the athletes in Taipei ahead of the start of the multi-sport event.
Here outside Songshan Creative Park in Taipei, athletes are picking up their accreditation passes ahead of the World Masters Games, officially kicking off tomorrow with a big opening ceremony at Taipei Dome. It's expected to be met with fanfare, with Navida CEO Jensen Huang recently announced as a torchbearer for science and technology. There has been some recent controversy in the lead up to these games. Taiwan has denied entry to 2 Chinese nationals who were signed up to compete. The Mainland Affairs Council said on Thursday there were concerns they intended to disrupt the event with political messages. But it is still expected to be a great Games. Tens of thousands of athletes have signed up, with around 6,000 flying in from across the globe to compete. The overseas contestants are representing over 100 countries, putting Taipei firmly on the world stage.
I'm from Brazil. I'm here for a group from Brazil. We are from Rio de Janeiro. We are here to swim.
It's such an event. You meet so many people and generally have a very good time.
Athletes will be competing across a wide range of disciplines, with events happening in Taipei and New Taipei City. There are 35 sports on the program, the same number as the Summer Olympics, though with a slightly different lineup: surfing, dancing, canoeing and more. The event will be officially wrapping up on May 30, expecting to add a positive contribution to Taiwan's tourism over the next 2 weeks and a lasting legacy for the future. Alex Chen, Sandy Chi, and Lauren Padamore in Taipei for TaiwanPlus.
Taiwan is hailed as a liberal haven for LGBTQ+ people. But if you look at the demographics of its politicians, you'll find it's a community that's underrepresented there. Ahead of the International Day Against Homophobia, Reese Ayres asks what's stopping gay people from getting into politics or from getting elected.
There's barely a surface that isn't covered with soft toys or pride flags in the office of Sabrina Lim's humble team. Lim is a Taipei City Councillor and chair of its Gender Equality Promotion Committee. But it's one of her staffers, Antonio Wu, who gives me the tour.
因为我刚好这一年的时候，我在那个婚姻平权大平台，现在是彩虹平权大平台。
Wu has been working for Lim as a policy assistant for about 2 years. And as a self-professed changemaker, he says he could see himself getting even deeper into politics in the future.
喂，那君研究室你好。我觉得我自己怎么样驱动我去做这份工作，就是怎么样去 make wave， 然后 make a change， 是我很重视的事情。所以 maybe 也许有机会的话，会想到政府部门里面去，会尝试看看这样子。
If Wu did join the ranks of city councillor or higher, he'd be one of a tiny handful of openly gay politicians ever to hold office in Taiwan. There are currently just 2 out LGBTQ+ legislators, neither who came out voluntarily, and around half a dozen councillors, all of whom are women. Wu explains why he thinks there isn't a single openly gay man in Taiwanese politics today.
对于男性的代议士来说，可能会有一个比较希望他们 very decisive, very masculine 的想象。可是如果说今天这个人他不是在传统上的男性角色的话，未必，我觉得这可能会去挑战大家愿不愿意去把这个票投给这个人。
Just down the hallway from Wu is Miao Boya's office, one of the few openly gay councillors in Taiwan. Queer rights and representation have long been a key issue for Miao, who has experienced firsthand the fallout of being out in politics. Just last year, a Taiwan People's Party legislator made fun of her in front of thousands of people. She explains what he said in Taiwanese.
迄个苗博雅，伊的清差，我唔知影要叫伊休假，我唔知是唔是要叫伊休假。That means, 苗博雅 as look at what she wears. I don't know how to call her as a Miss or Mr.
Since getting involved in politics almost a decade ago, Miao says many people, some she says who were well-meaning, have tried to persuade her she'd have more electoral success if she fit better into society's expectations of what a woman should look like.
They say you have to make yourself look like a girl or use more maybe like a pink color in your campaign.
But Miao refuses to dilute her identity.
That is another example to disencourage the youth, because I'm telling them if you want to be success in politics, you have to hide yourself from the public.
Miao has seen progress though. She says the locker room talk that was previously commonplace in politics has started fading away, since more women and queer people have found seats at the table. But even still, running as an openly gay candidate puts you at an immediate disadvantage. A recent survey by the Taiwan Equality Campaign gauges social acceptance of queer people across Taiwanese society. Around 77% of respondents said they would be accepting of gay classmates or colleagues, and around 72% said they'd accept a gay teacher or supervisor, but acceptance dropped to around 69% when asked about gay political representatives. That number drops even further when asked about their own children. Advocates point to holes in legal equality as helping foster prejudice in Taiwan, including a lack of anti-discrimination laws.
Like for commercial behavior or for online hate speech targeting the whole community, not only targeting single person, cannot be regulated now. Of course, we want our government to do more, to provide adult education to let the general public to know more about LGBT.
Taiwan has no shortage of heterosexual politicians who support queer causes, including current President Lai Ching-te, who, during his campaign, promised to continue his predecessor Tsai Ing-wen's legacy of expanding rights for queer people.
未来我会跟大家站在一起，在多元同行的路上一起迈进。
But for now, at least, allies might not be enough. By getting involved in politics, gay people like Miao Boya and Antonio Wu are hoping to change public perceptions about their community and push for a legislature that better represents the demographics of the people it serves.
或者是说年轻的一辈愿意进来的时候，我觉得都是一个有点像是路标，有点像是灯塔是一样的效果。
Advocates say that more diversity in the legislature and across the political spectrum will make future generations of queer people feel safer and more inspired to get involved with politics and become advocates for communities that, as of right now, have little to no representation in government. Klein Wang, Ryan Wu and Rees for TaiwanPlus.
Thank you for watching TaiwanPlus News. You can visit the TaiwanPlus website or follow our social media for more stories from Taiwan and around the world. Before we go, we're heading to the West African nation of Guinea-Bissau, which is holding its first ever art biennial. I'm Louise Watt. Take care. I'll see you next time.